Okay, and we are live. Welcome to today's session. Today we continue the classes. Um, Yesterday we talked about um, JavaScript, introduction to JavaScript, what JavaScript is about, and how it communicates with HTML, the DOM, JavaScript being the language of the DOM, right? And understanding um, um, understanding how to comment and why commenting is important in with JavaScript or programming generally. So today we'll be entering, moving forward, still in JavaScript series, we'll be entering variables and arithmetic operations. Right? I'll explain to you what variables are, what you can do with why you need variables, how important variables are, and the way, like I said, the way I'm going to be explaining the course, I'll be teaching you as I'm teaching you programming core programming with JavaScript. So I'll be explaining some programming concepts so that I won't teach it to you particularly, like I won't explain as though I'm explaining particularly to JavaScript. I'll explain in general terms so that when you pick up a new language, it'll be easier for you to understand some concept because in programming it's more about the same concepts, right? It's polymorphism, inheritance, encapsulations, and the rest. So they're still the same concept. So that's how I'm going to take the class. So yeah, um, brace up. If you are not on your system, grab your system. If you are watching this after the live session, get ready to get your hands busy, set up your VS Code and all as we go through this course. I'll be back. Let's have a little break. Okay, guys. Today's session I would be teaching you variables, what variables are, importance of variables, um, what they do to your language, and all. I already have those notes, and that you can see on our on my repository, right? In case you want to access it, so as to make your the flow easier. So you could go all here. So you could visit github.com, and when you're on github.com, github.com/letters. Yes, so you see my GitHub profile and just look for full stack development bootcamp, and when you're on it, you should see on the classes branch, right? Then you'll see JavaScript. So there you see begin and noob 11, right? And on Variablejs, you see the contents, right? So, for those who wants the contents. So yeah, let's start the class for today. So on this course, I'll introduce you to variables. I already have everything written down as my transcript. So I'll introduce you to variable and its usage across different data types. So basically, variables are data holders. They hold data of a specific type at a time, and behave like the dates and behave like the data they are holding, right? Behave like data they hold. So for example, I'll just use an English term. If you have a box, right? If you have a box, and let me just open my camera. Oh, white drawing board. So yeah, sorry. So I'll just load this up and yeah. So let's say you have a drawing board and you call it A. I have another drawing board. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I use that. So yeah, I have another one and it's called B, right? So basically, what variable is variables are like data holders, right? They hold your data, right? And they hold the data based on the type of data, right? And they when they hold the data, they act like the type of data they are holding, right? They assume the type of the data they are holding. Like for example, if A is a box and B is another box, right? And you put in, or let's call it a container, right? And you put in some items inside A, right? A now, those items you put inside A, right? Won't you don't know those items, but for every time you want to fetch those items, you call A, right? Let's say you're arranging your kitchen and you have your kitchen and you have where you put your salt and you have where you put your pepper, right? Let's say you put salt in A and you put pepper in B, right? When you want to tell your kid to bring pepper, right? Do you tell the kid to bring out the pepper from A? What you tell the kid is to bring A, right? That is bring the jar that has the pepper, which is this jar, and that's the variable, right? And if you want to tell a kid to bring the salt, you tell your kid to bring the jar that has salt, which is what B. So at that point now, A now assumes that the jar A now assumes the role of the holder of pepper, right? And anytime you say bring me A means I'm telling you bring pepper. You understand? And when I say bring me B, I'm telling you bring salt. You know. So basically, that's what variables does. And the essence of using variables is to be able to represent data, across your system or your program, right? To be able to call them at different time. So I'll give you an example. So if you see, for example, let's take a trip down memory lane. Remember when we have questions like 2a plus b is equal to c, where a is equal to 3 and b equals to 4, and they tell you find c. So now, in a question like this, for those who did WAEC and junior WAEC, as the case may be, right? You see that we have 2a plus b is equal to c. I mean, this was the questions we have back then in maths when we were doing arithmetic and algebra and the rest, right? And they tell you where a is equal to 3, b is equal to 4, and they tell you find c. So you see that a is a here is a variable, b here is also a variable, and c is a variable, right? And they tell you a is a variable, then and now they're giving you a new value of a, which tells you that what a is equals to 3 and b is equals to 5. I'm trying to find c. So c is a variable and this is what is equal to, right? And a is a variable and this is what is equal to 3. So now anywhere you see A, you present it as what? Its value, 3. You understand? So anytime you call A is always equals to 3 because of what you've already tell it that it's going to be. You understand? So now means that what? 3 has been assigned the value of what? A has been assigned the value of 3. So A now becomes 3 anywhere it is. Then B has been assigned the value of 4. Then B now becomes 4 anywhere it is. So now they tell you find C, and C now is the value of C now is what? 2A plus B, right? And that is how variable works, right? So so that's what variables are. They hold data and they can hold different type of data, you understand? So let us represent that question programmatically, right? So the first thing is what? Calling or initiating a variable. So to initiate a variable, you either use let, var, or constant, right? I'm going to explain these 3 concepts later when we get into ECMAScripting, right? These are very important things you should know in ECMAScript in ES6, right? So then after you've assigned the variable, the next thing that comes is after you've initiated the variable, next thing that comes is variable assignments, right? Then you have to assign the variable to a value, right? So if we have a question 2A plus B is equal to C, where A is equal to 3 and B is equal to 4, find C. So now how we solve this is this. Let A is equal to 3 means we're using the let for initiating the variable. So when we do this, means we have initiated the variable A, right? So it means we've said, okay, A is a variable that is going to be able to hold a particular data. We have not told it the data is going to hold. We just told it that A is a variable that can hold data, right? Now we can then say we want it to hold. So now we say A is a variable that can hold data, and here we don't know the kind of data A is holding. So now we have to give that data to A, right? And we then say A is equal to 3. So now this won't throw an error because now we've initiated the variable here and now we've assigned 3 to that variable, as you see here. So you can do the same thing for B, the same thing and you can do some things like you can initiate variables together provided they are like this and this. So I can do something like that. Right, I can do all of them, initiate all of them together. I can then say I'll now assign them their various value, right? Like this, and I say so. This is an assignment. So this you see here is called an assignment operator, right? I was going to come to it, but I just want to explain this to you first before we go into operators, right? So basically, we've said let A is equal. We've done the initiation of the variables that are needed, which is A, B, C, right? And now we've assigned values to them, right? The correct values based on the question, right? And now we can then say console.log C. So if I do console.log C here, right? Sorry, let me take this and yeah. I want to quickly show you something. Sorry. Okay, so I just want to quickly show you something. Yeah. So now I'll say this. So now I want to show you what this is going to output. Normally, when you solve this in your math problem, when you solve 2a plus, sorry, the way I'm typing. I'm not typing. I'm using my mouse to be able to draw this, so it's not so accurate. So they tell you A is equal to 3 and B is equal to 4, I guess. So that's 2 times A plus B, right, is equal to C. That's 2 times, I wish this would go well. 2 times 3 plus, I want us to solve this first, plus 4, right, is equal to C, is it not? So now 2 times 3 is what? 6. 6 plus 4 is 10. So our answer is 10 is equal to C. So this is what we get as our answer, right? All here. Yeah. So this is all we got as an answer all here, right? Here. So 10, C is equal to 10. So now let's see what this is going to return. I remember on our index.html, we have to call variable.js, right? So I'll just do this and I'll take this down here. So we just have to call variable.js. Why am I calling variable.js? This is an external, I'm calling the JS file externally, as I explained to you yesterday on our previous class, sorry. And you see here, this is what holds all the content of variable.js, and now we'll call it here so that once we launch this HTML script, this HTML file, it automatically runs this on a server. So I would open this on live server and something like this here, sorry. So now inspect. Remember we use console.log, and I told you what console.log does, yeah? So I'll go to console, then we'll cancel everything, and then load. Yeah, so you see this value there. Let me zoom so you see it more. So you should see that it consoles 10, right? So if you want it to be clear, I can say console. I'll teach you how to do some more tricks in console as we move forward, right? I just want to just show you something. So is C. So you see, when I reload this page, are you seeing it? The answer is what? 10. So I've assigned variables, I've initiated variable, I've assigned the variable to a number, and then I have done a mathematical problem with it, so you understand the concept of variables and how it works, right? And now I'll teach you also there are different ways you can assign a variable. Instead of, if I don't want to do all this like this, I can easily just come here and do the assignment and the initiation and the assignment on the same line, right? And it's not wrong. So as you can see here, I initiated here, and I also assigned the variable to assigned a value to the variable, right? Like I did also here, and I'll do also here, right? And you see that it gives you code. So if you want to do the other method, you can do it. Most times it's what helps the other method is helps you is when you're writing a bulk code, right? And you're going to be reusing the particular variable always. It's best you first initiate it, then you then start assigning the values wherever you want to use it, right? But in a case whereby you are just going to initiate once, right, and assign the value once, like it's going to still maintain the same value. So then that's when you use constant, or probably if you want to still use let, then you just assign and initiate once, you know. Let's say you want to use that particular variable only in that code block, so you can just assign a variable and initiate it at the same time in one line of code. So from the above experience, I represented the arithmetic operations programmatically. The results would be given seen in the console as I've shown you. I assigned A to 3, B to 4, and they assigned the results of the equations to C. and I printed C in the console, right? And sorry, let me take this back a bit. So yeah. So notice that for A and B, I did the assignment on the same line, and then for C, I had to do it on another line. We do this in case we need users input or declarations or declaration of first value, right? Or value first. So now, so now there are like two types of, or three types of data types. So they are like this what we call data types in JavaScript. So I remember when I explained what variables are to you, I told you variables assume the kind of data they hold, right? They become the data they hold, the type of data they hold, right? And it's important programmatically for a program to know the kind of data that it's being sent, because then if it wants to do arithmetical progression and calculations, you should know how it's going to handle it. So this is one thing you should know, right? Programs don't know um, programs don't know when one is a word and when one is a number, right? For example, you might be writing a letter and you write, we have one boy in class. So provided you didn't write the one as ONE, right, and you wrote it as one, you as a human being, when you're reading it, you probably understand that the one there is a string, right? So for programs, unless you indicate that as a string, right, sometimes it can see it as a variable, or you can see it as, sorry, it can see it as an integer, or you can see it as a string, right? But depending on how you indicate what it is. So in essence, if you do 1 plus 1 and you didn't let JavaScript know that whatever thing you're putting is a string or a number, right, it might give you the result 11. So for strings, 1 plus 1, 1 as a string and 1 as a string, when you add them together, it gives you 11. But 1 as a number and 1 as a number, when you add it together, it gives you 2. That's what programs know. So you have to be able to represent your data as a number and also be able to represent it as a string. So if you look at my screen, you see that strings is represented differently from numbers, although it can be easily mistaken, like I said. All right, so check the example below. We have let's age. So I'll just yeah. So if you see this, I said let age be equals to 12 and let age be equals to 12, right? But if you notice there's a difference here. So the difference between a string and a number is this parenthesis, right? This is what makes a difference. This is what you use in identifying a string, right? Once you see this, then you know that that particular thing is not a number but a string. So you see let age equals to 12 is a number here, right? Because it doesn't have parentheses. But when you say let my age equals to parenthesis inside parenthesis 12, then it means this is a string. So it means when you do, so I'll just do this quickly so you can see let age equals to 12. So when I do let age is equals to 12, then let's new age equals to 12 plus 2, right? Console.log new age. That's the variable new age, and so I believe you can see what I did here. So now, yeah, I believe you can see what I did here. So now I'm going to console.log this so you can see. So if I click OK, and that didn't refresh, so let's see again. So you see the new age is what? 14, right? Because we said what? We said console.log let new age equals to 12 plus 2. So we said first we assigned 12 to the variable age, and then we assigned 12 plus 2, right? Or instead, let me not even do 12 plus 2. That was a mistake. I should do age plus 2. Yeah. So age plus 2 is now equals to the new age, right? So age plus 2 equals to, it means it's going to represent what, 12 plus 2. So if I keep changing this value to 15, new age, see, I don't have to touch anything in my code. I don't have to change the value of age, right? And you see that once it reloads, it gives me the new age, and the new age it gives me is going to be 17, right? So that's what variables help you do. You can call them anytime you want to call them, and when you add something, you can then use it to run arithmetical program or operations generally, right? You can run different operations, programmatical operations with it whenever after you have called it, right? And that's the essence, right? So now let's move ahead, and now this is representation of numbers, right? Now let me show you how you present. What if it's a string? How does JavaScript interact with it when it's a string? So when it's a string, it interacts with it differently, right? When we say let my age equals to 12, right? And I say let my age, or let new age, right, equals to my age plus I'll write another string 2, right? I represent 2 as a string, right? And this guy. So now let's console.log new age, right, to the screen. So I'll console.log new age to the screen, and yeah, so let's see. Save this and reload. So you see the result. It prints out 1 to 2, right? So basically what's happening here is that it just does this, right, plus 2. It doesn't solve it as an arithmetical problem. It solves it as 2 words, right? It sees it as 2 words, right? And it just joins them together. So it basically sees this as A, B plus C, and then it returns, sorry, I think I can erase this. So basically what's the string literal does, what the string literally does is this: it sees A plus no, not that one. So yeah, this is it. Sorry. So yeah, so it sees A, B plus C, right? It sees this as a string, and then it returns A, B, C, and that's what's going on here, right? When it sees strings, it represents strings the way it is, yeah. But had it been there, this wasn't there. Had it been this wasn't there, right? Like this wasn't represented as a string, then the result is going to be 12 plus 2, which is 14. It's going to be see it as numbers. So you should take note of that, right? And it's very important to know when to use string and when to use numbers. So this without parentheses, JavaScript sees it as a number. When it uses parentheses, it sees it as a string. And most times your words, your characters, right? Your words enters a string. Like for example, I'll just do this. Let's print text equals hey, my ages. So you see this is a text. So a string doesn't hold only numbers, right? And represent them to string. Also, it's majorly used to hold, when we say strings, like letters, characters, your characters, your letters, all those falls under strings, right? So you see here, my age is this. Then I can come here and say, change this to pretexts plus my age, right? And when I console.log this, what you should see is, hey, my name is, this is what it should return. It should return this, hey, my name is, so I'll give it a number instead. My age is, so it should return, hey, my age is 12. That was going to return, and let's test it to be sure. So here I'll do this. I should see this. Hey, my age is 12. As you can see here. So basically, that's what happens behind it. That's what happens when you're assigning variables. I literally didn't know that you were not seeing my screen. I'm sorry about that. So this is what I was trying to show you. This is basically what I was trying to show you. So I think with this you understand data types in string. Oh, the last one is Boolean. So Boolean is true or false, right? It's either whether a data is true or a data is false. So I can say, for example, let A equals true, right? True, right? And I say console.log. So I'm going to give you an example where we get to use this values as the Boolean values, but sometimes you don't really get to use them. You use them more when you're doing like conditional statements, when you have to check if something is truthy or if a value is truthsy, right? If a value is meets a particular condition, right? So if it returns true, then you should do this. If it doesn't return true, then you should do another thing, So that's when you use more of the Boolean operations. But for now, I'll just show you what it looks like. So, yep. So one thing you should know is if you didn't take your basic maths seriously when you were in school, right? You should really take you should really probably just go back to algebras and some things, because programming's foundation is on basic mathematics, right? Because then it just follows step-by-step processes, and if you understand your basic mathematics, from your plus and minus, your algebras and the rest, right? True or false, greater than, less than signs, all those things, all those small things in maths, they are the bedrocks of programming. When you understand most of all these things, it builds your knowledge in programming. Then it's not difficult. It becomes less difficult for you to follow up, because then, someone might probably have asked you this, that you probably asked yourself this question: why what's the use of maths? Why did you learn maths in school, and why did you learn English in school, right? Or probably language. I'll tell you this: programming is just maths and English. Okay, I won't just put just, but it's basically a combination. Understanding what you want to do and being able to represent it first with words, right? Then breaking it down to smallest mathematical method. For example, when I say I want you to print hello world for people who are older than 12 years old, right? In a class. So this is a question that was asked you to print. You were asked to print hello world for people who are more than when the number of class people, when the number of no print hello world when the number of people in the class is more than 50, right? That's a very simple question. Now it takes you understanding English, right? Or maybe your language to be able to represent this first. So you know that, okay, you're supposed to do this activity, right? When it meets this condition. At that point, you're doing in your head, you're already using the word if. So if the number of people in the classroom is more than 50, then you should print hello world. If is a programming term, right? Then now you don't have to represent it mathematically. So now representing English in maths. So now I say if a number is more than, it means if a number is greater than, right? Then you have your greater than sign and your less than sign, and you're then saying, so here this is if. If number of people in the class, right, is greater than 50, then you should print this. Programmatically, what this means is just as simple as saying, and now we've learned about variables, right? If you want to represent this as variables, we'll now say, let's first have a variable called number of people in the class, so it makes our work easier. Number of people in the class is equal to 50. Let number of people in the class equal to 50. Feels like normal English, right? Let number of people in the class equals to 50. Now we let's say if number of people in the class is greater than, let number of people in the class, right? Let number of people in class equals to 50, right? And we then say if number of people in the class is greater than sign 50, then you should print this particular result. That is it. We've just programmed something, right? So we've written a program that prints a result when when the number of people in the class is 50. And with this, you get to understand that the bedrock of programming is just being able to understand the language, which is English, and understanding and converting your knowledge of English to mathematics, to basic mathematics, right? Then when you convert to basic mathematics, then you can then present it with the language. So I tell people when you want to learn a programming language, just see it as learning a spoken language, right? So first, try to represent the problem or whatever thing you want to achieve with English. Break it down to English. It's called pseudocodes, right? When you break it down to English in pseudocodes is not, you're not really writing any program, you're just writing English. So when you break it down first, then you can then put it to mathematical operations, right? Or arithmetical or operations, right? Then when you've done that, then you can then put it to a program. So if you achieve the first step and second step, right? The third step now is when you decide to choose the language you want to represent it in. Then now you have to follow the rules of that language and represent it based on the rules of the language, right? So first step is breaking down. If you see a programming question or problem, explain the question well in English, breaking down each steps, right, in English. And that's at that point you're writing down its pseudocode, right? Then you represent whatever thing you've written mathematically, right, in basic mathematics, breaking it down into like small forms. And after you've done that, then you move into choosing the language you want to represent that thing you've broken down, right? And then it's easier to represent it in any language when you've done 1 and 2. So don't forget these steps. You're going to need it all your life when you're coding. When you start programming or when you start writing codes, you're going to need it all your life. It's like the basic knowledge you should have. No matter the stumbling block you're having, whatever bugs you're having or problem you're having fixing, once you think about it this way, being able to break it down, then voila, you got your answer. You see the platforms that people build, all the big platforms, it still goes down to this same steps. When you want to represent a problem, it still goes down to the same steps. So I think that's all for the pep talk. So now let's continue what we're doing. And the next part is, So I said we've done the next part is teaching you arithmetic arithmetic operators in JavaScript. So our time is fast spent. I think we've spent more than 30 minutes already. But I think with some of the examples you have here, you should already get a picture of how arithmetic operations happen in JavaScript, right? So in our next class, we'll just do a shuffle of some arithmetic operations, then immediately we'll go into methods and objects in JavaScript, right? And we'll do the data types conversions also. So by the end of this week, we should be done with the node level JavaScript. So yeah, so basically this is how you assign variables, how string data types in JavaScript, understanding how to write codes, how to program or the JavaScript syntax, assigning variables, assignment of variables, initiating variables, right? So yeah, I hope you practice with this. I mean, try to pick up some basic math problem or algebraic problems and try to resolve them using what you've learned here, right? The small things you've learned here. So this will be the end of today's class. I hope this class was insightful and helpful to you. So Arrivederci, guys. Sorry. Yep. Bye bye.